Welcome to Turning Base, the podcast that charts a course through the fast-changing world of aviation digital marketing. Hosted by Brandon and Redeker, Turning Base is your destination for actionable strategies, expert interviews, and insights tailored for FBOs, charter operators, and general aviation providers. If you're ready to elevate your brand, streamline your messaging, and grow your presence in the skies, you're in the right place. This is Turning Base.
Hello and welcome. I am Brandon, and this is Turning Base Podcast. And this is, well, episode 1. It's got to start somewhere. So this is where we're going to start, is with episode 1. And so I'm the host, started this, kind of came up with the idea. And why am I doing this, right? It's a little bit about me. We're going to talk about us, why we're doing this, cover some news, and also cover a book, because we've also learned over the years that a lot of people in the aviation industry, they like to read. So we're going to try to have some good insight into different books. So aviation. Well, aviation, I don't know how else to say this, but kind of grew up around aviation, right? So I am joined with my brother, Bryan Redeker, and the two of us, we grew up with a lot of pilots in our family. Both of our grandpas were pilots. Our dad was a pilot. And our grandpa did have a couple different arrows that he flew. So many times we would just go flying. If it was a nice day, grandpa would call us up and say, hey, let's all go flying. So we spent a lot of time at small airports, at different FBOs, flying around, seeing Michigan from all different kinds of views. So that kind of started it, and then we got into, well, how many air shows have we gone to over the years?
I don't even know. You know, it's funny because there was this thing on social media every once in a while that pops up, right? Like on Threads or on Facebook or whatever you call Twitter these days. But there's like this question that comes up, and it's fascinating to look at because people say, what was your first experience on an airplane? Tell me about your first experience of an airplane. And I'm thinking, I don't remember my first experience with an airplane. From what I understand, and like I said, I don't recall this. I was only a few months old. And this would have been in the 1970s still, 1979.
Right, yeah.
Rules were different back then. From what I understand, my first flight in an airplane was sitting on my grandfather's lap in his Aero, and we did a sunset flight out of Grand Haven, where his aircraft was based out of. They actually had some pictures taken of that flight, and the picture from that flight with me sitting on his lap, being held by him, was hanging up in his office forever. Sadly, I don't know what ever happened to that picture, so I have no recollection of what my first flight was. Do you remember what was your first flight memory that you have or told you or you were part of?
Well, I think we both have heard some stories of us flying commercial.
Yes,
as
that
little
was the
ones.
first time the two of us flew together somewhere.
Yes.
But do you remember flying in the Aero beforehand, or had any stories to go along with that?
The first memory that I have that really kind of sticks out is we got the Aero out of the hangar and did the pre-flight. I was pretty young. I don't remember exactly how old, and it wouldn't start, and it had a dead battery. So we had to get all the cables out, and I can remember we got all strapped in, ready to go, and it wouldn't start. It had a dead battery.
Yeah, you must have been older enough to be able to remember that, because like I said, mine, no recollection. The first actual flights I could remember were similar to you, where you can actually remember going to the airport, opening the hangar door, and helping Grandpa pull on the tow bar to get the airplane out. Do the pre-flight, do all that. But by the time I was that age, I would have been, probably 4 or 5 years old to be able to have recollections of actually being part of the flight.
Yeah, I'm guessing I was probably about 6 years old that I remember. But I know that we flew even before I can remember. So being around small airplanes and FBOs, and then when the air show would come to town, always being part of that and spending tons of time around the airports for it is, so
Yeah, and air shows in the 1980s. The Muskegon Air Show is the local one that we went to, and that air show in the 1980s and in really through the 1990s um, was really one of the best air shows I've ever been to. The amount
yeah,
of aircraft there. I mean, surely it's no Sun and Fun, surely it's no Oshkosh, but
yeah,
the
yeah,
amount of military hardware that was there, and be able to watch things fly like the F-14 Tomcat, the F-117 flew over, did not land. The B-2 stealth bomber, the
sure, yeah,
B-1, warbirds, always having warbirds, B-17s, B-29, B-24.
yeah.
Uh,
Always
always heard stuff. Huge air show, and it unfortunately it kind of spoiled us because you thought all air shows are going to be that awesome,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
you realize that not all air shows are that awesome, and we were extremely fortunate. But you mentioned commercial flying, so
yeah,
uh, and I don't exactly remember what year. This is probably going to be around 1983. It had to be about 80, 83,
yeah,
84, because our sister was born in 84. And then we didn't fly commercial as much. And our grandparents, so the grandparents on my mom's side, so the maternal side, they lived in California at the time. And we lived in Michigan. And the only way to really get there is, of course, you got to fly there.
yeah. That's a long drive.
And Brandon and I went for our first commercial flight.
Hmm.
You get the little wings. We got to keep our little wings,
Absolutely.
and we had one of those plastic. It's like I don't know if it was they're not Duplo, but they had the little people, the
Hmm.
little round like cylinder people with little heads on
Yes.
top, little
Yep.
plastic dudes. We had one of those airplanes. I mean, who didn't have one of those airplanes in the
Oh,
1980s? I think
classic
everybody
80s
did.
toy.
So on takeoff in ascent, we realized that if you put the airplane in the aisle, the airplane will roll to the back of the plane, and then somehow it got passed back up to us again. You put it back on the ground and it would roll to the back of the plane. And this was a great deal of fun that we could make our airplane
Absolutely.
move inside another airplane. Um, and of course, the build quality in the 1980s wasn't probably the best either. So we
Not like
found
it is today. No.
no, well, I don't know. Some would argue maybe it was better. I don't know. But I do remember that there was an interior trim panel that was
Yes.
loose. And you could pull back on that trim panel and you could actually look inside the trim panel at the inside workings of the aircraft. And so clearly frowned upon today. But
Yes. Don't try that today.
don't
Please,
try
please
that
don't.
today. But as kids in early 1980s, remember this was back when they had smoking on the planes and
They
things were
sure
very
did.
different. They had, it was a very different world back then. So that was our very first experience flying commercial, and we did a couple flights out to California and back, and that's our first. And then since then, yeah, as Brandon mentioned, we've been around aviation pretty much our entire lives. I was in Civil Air Patrol for many years. Got to fly on C-130s. Got to fly in a UH-1 Huey with the Army National Guard. Spent a ton of time in all sorts of different military aircraft. Not really flying, but helping out at the air show, and they always would get you patches and cool stuff for helping
Yeah, and
out.
even
So
though I wasn't in Silver Patrol, I still helped out and got to do some of those things as well. And I remember going to different bases with you guys and helping
yeah,
out
you
when I
kind of
could.
tagged along. You
I
weren't, and
did.
sometimes you weren't even old enough to be part of the program.
No, I was
But
not. But I tagged
I
along
remember
anyway.
specifically there was an air show in Muskegon, and there was a restaurant that opened. Um, that opened here locally, and it was the type of restaurant in which the wait staff were somewhat suggestive clothing.
Clothing. Yeah,
And at the air show, all the pilots and crew obviously wanted
that's where they went.
to go there as well, and helping out with the air show and stuff. I found myself there with my dad, who's also in Civil Air Patrol at the time, and Brandon, you tagged along.
I did tag along
as
for
kind
this
of the
adventure.
third wheel with this huge group. And we went in. By the way, this isn't one of those restaurants that you have to be 18 or older. So don't
No,
think
no,
it's like one of
it's
those
not
at
like
all.
that.
Okay, it's still family friendly environment. Okay, it's not one of those. We didn't take you somewhere inappropriate, but we took you there for your very first time at the air show, and here you
Yes.
are with all these people with flight suits and military stuff on, and you're like this kid sitting there. So once again, lot of fun. So even if you weren't directly involved, you were still
Still there a lot.
very much involved. And right around the time I was in Civil Air Patrol, I started looking at getting my my private pilot's license. I definitely started on it, and I was about 15 at the time. And I got to a crossroad where I wanted to buy a car. I wanted to buy a Ford
Yeah.
Mustang to work on, or I could continue on my private pilot's license and go through that, or I could take that money and buy a car. And at the time I looked at it, and I'm like, pilot's license was very expensive.
Yes.
So the car was much less money. So I bought the car, still have it today. 31 years later, still have the same car.
Which is amazing.
It's gonna be 32 here
It is
soon. Still have the same car, and I said, you know what? I will go back and work on flying someday. And unfortunately, that someday hasn't quite occurred yet. But Brandon, you've actually started on some of your private pilots.
Yeah. So I
license.
actually have started.
You're working on it.
I am working on it. I have started it. I flown a couple different airplanes now already. The Warrior, which is going to be my primary trainer right now locally, but I did get an opportunity also to fly a brand new Cirrus SR-20, which okay, I understand a little bit more of the hype after flying one. It is an amazing aircraft. And so coming out of training,
and that aircraft was at Sun and Fun just a few weeks ago. That exact same aircraft was at Sun and Fun. Our father lives in Florida, went to Sun and Fun, said, hey, look at this really cool Cirrus. Looks like the one you flew. Turned out exactly the same one.
It was the one I flew. So that was amazing. So yes, I am working on my private right now. So hopefully as this podcast continues, I'll be able to give you some more updates as I get more hours and keep going. So I think it's going to be a fun adventure. And we continue to still hang out at airports and fly when we can with friends that we know that do have planes. So, you know, here it is, how many years later, and we really have been around cars and airplanes our entire life. Yeah.
In fact, tonight, really I was supposed to be going to the local airport because our flying club, our remote control flying club is there. And today kicked off the first evening of our flying season. It's been very cold, windy, and rainy, and our remote control airplane field has been flooded. And so today was the first day that it actually reseated. I skipped out on that so I could talk to you guys tonight. But so even though I don't fly full scale, and I am at the airport literally every evening all summer long, flying remote control aircraft, and we have friends that have full scale aircraft who are also members of our RC aircraft club as well. And so we'll go up in full scale aircraft. A good friend of ours has an RV-7 that he built a number of years ago. He lives down the street. He built it in his garage, and we made an RC plane of an exact twin to him. So maybe one of these nights we'll have him on as a special guest. And he can talk about his RV, and then of course just a lot of good friends in the aviation
absolutely
community. And
absolutely.
So how many podcasts have you done so far?
Well, this is number one.
This is number one. Yeah, same here.
Yeah, so we were a guest on a podcast once many years ago.
Yeah.
And that's been it, actually.
Yeah, I was a guest for Horizon Hobby on a podcast in which we used Real Flight RC flight simulator, and we just had fun and talked airplanes and just kind of hung out. That was a lot of fun. But otherwise, our previous experience with kind of social and video making and online content really kicked off with the Ford Fiesta movement.
Yeah.
Which is really a pretty fascinating program.
Yeah, it is.
So that would have been 2009.
2009, yeah.
Ford put out a call basically in January, right before the North American International Auto Show, asking for people with a social media presence, people who you didn't even know anything about cars. You didn't have to know anything about cars. This wasn't a car thing. But Ford Motor Company wanted people to do what we would now call an influencer. That name never existed in 2009. And they opened up this thing to the entire country, and they were only going to select 100 people. And those 100 people were going to be given a European Ford Fiesta for 6 months and document life with the car. Take it on road trips, do stuff with it, do normal stuff with it, but go have fun and document all that. And I remember when we got selected, we were told, okay, you need these following social media things, and one of them was Twitter. And I
Barely even
remember
heard of it.
I would never even heard it. Nobody even heard of it. I said, I gotta have Twitter. Nobody even knew in 2009 what Twitter was. In fact, I think we downloaded it. I think I was even at the airport flying for work, and I had to download this thing, and I'm like, I don't even understand what this is, but
Yeah.
Ford says I have to have it. So
Yeah.
uh, mostly what we did was a lot of still photography and videography, and then we amplified the message using Facebook and Twitter, and that was an amazing program to be part of. One of only 100 agents, and
Yeah.
then at the end of that program, they took that 100 and they selected 12 to be part of the virtual launch team and product experts. And we were selected to be one of those 12s. We got to keep the European car for another 6 months. So we had it for
Awesome
a
car.
full year.
Yeah.
Most of those cars went to a rally school in New Hampshire. Some of them went back to Europe, from what I understand. Ours went back to Europe. But it gave us a huge amount of exposure in the automotive space and a good understanding of social media marketing. Forbes magazine did an article on the Fiesta movement. In fact, I got invited to go be part of the panel for that discussion. I couldn't get out of work at the time. This thing wasn't really designed for those of us who have a regular
Had full-time jobs and
yeah,
stuff
it
like
was
that.
not designed for a full-time job. Most of the people we were in were heavily involved in YouTube and creating content, and that was their full-time job.
Yeah.
We had a full-time job, and I was going to
We
school at the same
we
time,
just did this for fun.
and we did this on the side.
Yeah.
And then in 2013, we got called back.
Yeah.
Ford selected only a few people from the original 100 to come back and launch the next generation Ford Fiesta, and we were selected as even one of the fewer. I think maybe one of two.
I think
it was-
so. Yeah.
Yeah, us and Mark were the only two that got selected to be agents for. That's what they called us, influenced agents,
Yes.
to launch the Ford Fiesta ST. And we got to fly down to Brazil
To
with
kick
the
the
X
whole thing
Games
off.
and ESPN, and we filmed a TV commercial with Brian Deegan, and that aired anytime there was an X Games that season. So we were able to see ourselves on television,
On TV quite often.
which is kind of weird to see yourself in a TV
It really
commercial.
is.
This isn't normally our jam.
Or when you're like just going out and you're doing things and all of a sudden
It's
your
on
phone
TV.
starts blowing up, or it's on TV and you're like, hey,
Yeah.
wait a minute, that's
Yep.
wait, that's me.
That's us. We are on.
That's
we
us.
are over there on that their television.
Yeah.
So
that was awkward.
that's been our exposure. So we have a lot on the automotive side as well. But we've had a deep passion for aviation for a very long time, and we've been trying to figure out what to do. The automotive landscape has changed dramatically in the last few years, and it's just not quite the same. And to some extent, we're not really part of what I'd call the influencer culture. It's changed a little bit compared to what it was before. Media landscape has changed a little bit when it comes to automotive, and so we really weren't sure how to get back into that space. And that's what Brandon, you came up with this idea.
I did.
On doing something different. I had taken our YouTube channel and I had pivoted towards RC content. I worked for Horizon Hobby for a short period of time as one of their managers, and really leveraged that relationship to do a lot of content on RC aviation. And I was their historical kind of check person, historical research on warbirds and civilian aircraft, and as well as dealing with a lot of their paint schemes in the type of aircraft. But we didn't really have anything going on the automotive side. We didn't really have anything going on the aviation side.
No.
And then, Brandon, you came up with this idea.
I did, and it
for Ready Marketing. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about what Ready Marketing is and what this podcast is all about. Your dream. This is your baby.
It kind
you
of
did
is.
this.
Been working on this for quite some time.
Quite some time, indeed.
And by the way, for those that don't know, starting a podcast is actually way harder than I think a lot of people think it is, or just see it and like, oh, I'm just going to start a podcast. It's actually there's a lot of pieces and parts to this. So really, as I've kind of started on my own aviation journey, right? I have a passion for aviation. I live right by the airport, which is slightly intoxicating because I get to see and hear all the airplanes coming and going all day long. And so doing this and then trying to do research into getting my my pilot's license, along with I want to buy my own airplane one day. That's one of my goals. And then looking at, okay, what upgrades do I want to do? What airplane do I want? Where am I going to store it? All of this stuff, right? And then I kind of started realizing that there's a gap here. There are some FBOs and MROs and even some charter and flight schools. Some are doing it really good. Like they have great websites, great online presence, great information. But then there are others that like it was actually really hard to get information. It was just like really, really hard. And then you'd watch YouTube videos of others and you're like, oh, that's what they did. Oh, that's how they do it. And you go to their website and there wasn't a whole lot there, right? So it was kind of like, hey, wait a minute. We've done some big work, right? With Ford Motor Company, ESPN, the X Games. We've seen some of the stuff, how it works together and how to get that word out and get that attention. And so taking our passion of aviation and then some of our knowledge of marketing and media and social media and all these things is kind of what led to creating Ready Marketing and then this podcast, because kind of why this podcast is I think going to be really important is helping people. This is for helping FBOs and MROs and charter businesses and flight schools and actually even a little bit into retail, right? Because a lot of FBOs have a small little retail store. So,
And when you talk about, for those just joining, FBO, MRO, right? If you're in the aviation community, you probably know. But if you're just finding this for the first time,
sure,
and someone
right?
says FBO, MRO, there's a lot of pilot slang that goes along with
Oh,
that,
isn't there?
that part of the world, right? So what is an FBO and an MRO, and how do I know if I'm looking at one?
Yeah, so FBO, fixed spaced operator. So they're the guys that are on the ground that really do a ton of work at the airports. Even big airports, the FBOs are the ones that actually a lot of times will be even fueling the commercial planes, right? So they're the ones that operate a lot of the fuel. And when you're private, whether it's a private charter flight or you're in your Cherokee, whatever, when you're coming in and out, it's usually the FBO that handles all of the traffic on the ground. So from fueling your plane to tying it down, transient, any of those things, that all kind of happens through an FBO. So they are super important to every single airport. And I don't even know. I've heard numbers. There's like what 5,000 airports in the
Yeah,
U.S.
something like that. I think that's about right. And unfortunately, we've had a lot of airports close, especially general aviation airports
Yeah.
over the years for multiple reasons. And I think a lot of that we see is it's a failure to communicate the value proposition to the community and why the airport is necessary. It is not well understood that everything that an airport can do, especially in smaller
Yeah.
airports. Bigger. We're not talking about O'Hare. We're not talking about
This is
LAX
true.
here, right? We're talking about these small airports that have 1 to 2 runways that are general aviation. And a lot of times it's just a communication breakdown of not being able to
Oh,
explain
yeah.
what the value proposition is to the community, and then the community kind of turns their back on the airport and shuts it
Oh,
down.
yeah.
And the FBOs are really the only thing that it's their line of defense. And so we want to make sure that we arm the FBOs with strategies to help not only bring in more business and to become more profitable and to help get the word out, but also to be good stewards of the community, do community
Oh,
events.
absolutely.
Our local
So
airport here
important.
that I'm close to, Grand Haven, they do a trunk and treat event, they do a dawn patrol, they do open
Hmm.
houses, they do a number of community events, and it brings people out. And when people are brought out to the airport and they're around airplanes and they see what the airport does, they definitely start to get a connection um, to that. And so not only do you have the community aspect of it, but then you also have how do you bring people in? How do you make your
Yeah.
airport a destination?
Yep.
Um, pretty lucky here in Grand Haven. This is like a huge tourist town, but it's only a huge
Yeah,
tourist town for like 3 months out of the year. The other
that's
9
true.
months, nobody wants to come here because it's cold and miserable. But for those 3 months, it's one of the coolest places on the planet
It
to
is
live.
amazing. Yeah. Yeah. And so then, MRO, right? Because that was the other acronym I kind of threw out there. So maintenance, repair, and overhaul. So that's also a really important piece.
Are you telling
And
me that planes need work? Like you have to do stuff. You have to work on them. Like they require maintenance
all the time,
all
right?
the time.
Sometimes unscheduled maintenance
Yes.
that you need
Yes.
happens
Yeah.
quite often. But then you also have like the big upgrades, right? It's winter time. You're not going to fly for a little bit because the weather's just not great. So you want to take it somewhere to have new avionics, a new panel. You know, it's time for the engine overhaul, and it's gonna be tied up during the winter anyway. So you want to find a good place. So who do you take it to, right?
Yeah.
Who's a good shop that you can take it to, a reputable shop that let's face it. A car is one thing. You can just pull off, but an
Right.
airplane, it's a little different, right? So you want to
Yeah.
take it to some place that you can trust, that you can trust their
Sometimes you
workmanship.
don't have a choice, though.
Well, this is also
I
true.
had I was in a citation on a business trip out to the East Coast, and we had to deal with the FBO and the MRO unexpectedly,
Yeah,
as the citation only would fire up one engine out of the two. And
that's a problem.
the flight crew was trying to run it down the taxiway as fast as they could to try to spin up the other engine to get it to fire. It wouldn't fire. We got a hold of the MRO team. The maintenance team came out. They brought all their stuff out. Turned out to be a failed part that they couldn't get, and so then we're stranded. Our jet is broken, and we are stranded at this airport on the East Coast. And at the time, I'd worked for a German company, and our president at the time of the Americas region was German as well, and had a very thick German accent. Spoke English, but definitely had a very German accent, German name, and you most certainly thought he was European. There wasn't any question about it. And so we're at the FBO, and he said, we have to get out of here and get back home again. And so they're trying to figure out where is home. Now, if you don't know Michigan all that well, in West Michigan, we have a town called
This is true.
Holland, Michigan. It's
Hmm.
known for tulips and
Yeah,
the Dutch. And the company I work for, they had an office in Holland, and our jet was based out of Holland at the time.
yeah, it was based on
So he
Holland.
comes up with this very thick German accent to the FBO, the girl working behind the desk there. And he's like, "Oh yeah, well, we have to get to Holland." She's thinking, "Oh man, we gotta, we gotta try to find a way to get all these guys to Holland." Thinking the Netherlands. She's trying to figure this out. She's on the phone. These guys are all coming in. They're working on all the stuff. They're looking over all their different charter options. They're trying to figure out how to get us to Holland. We're thinking, how can it be that hard to get us to Holland? I mean, we came here on a little citation. How come we can't get back to the Holland, Michigan? They come back and say, "Look, we found something that is that could go across the ocean and get you guys back to Holland." We're like,
The ocean.
"Ocean? What are you talking about? Ocean? We got to get back to Holland, Michigan." And then we all had a huge laugh because they actually were convinced that we had to go to Europe. And if we wouldn't have caught that, it would have been mighty interesting to be flying for like an hour, looking out and saying, I haven't seen land in like an hour. All I see is water, and we would have landed in the Netherlands. And I'm expecting that we're going to be in Holland, Michigan, which for us in that jet is really only like an hour and a half flight. So as it turned out, they put us in a much newer jet and got us back home again in a matter of no time. But there was a great instance in which you did not have a choice. You were going to have to deal with an FBO and an MRO very unexpectedly.
Yeah, and you even got the charter side in there too, because
Absolutely.
you were charging a flight.
We almost ended up with a totally different charter
Yeah,
because the price was a massive. And so
I
the
could
president of the
imagine.
company had to call the CEO, who was in Germany, and I don't know what time it was like midnight or something, to get permission to spend the money to fly, still thinking that was the dollar amount to get us to Holland, Michigan, and that was actually the dollar amount to get us to Holland, the countries.
Yeah,
These things are all
slight
intertwined.
different. Yeah,
It's
they
slight
are.
different. Yeah, but all these things are kind of intertwined, and you don't necessarily know when you are going to have to encounter many of these things in flying.
Oh, right. And how many, some airports, those are all different companies, right? And then
Yeah, the charter that actually we were dealing with on that particular one was separate than the FBO and separate of the offices that we were in, and the MRO was actually a totally different
yeah.
part of the
Yeah.
operation as well.
And sometimes it's all in one, right? It can be all underneath one roof. It can be underneath different roofs. And like Grand Rapids actually has 2 different FBOs. So that's actually a big enough airport that they have 2 full-time FBOs to take care of all the planes that come in and out of there. So, there's a lot of there's a different mix depending on where you're going and what you're doing and the mission that you're trying to accomplish while you're flying. So yeah, there's a lot to this, right? And that's really what we're going to try to help, right? So as we go through this podcast, is we're going to have a guest on here, and they may not even be all from the aviation industry, right? Because there's a lot of great people that have good information about marketing, community events. Brian, you'd already mentioned about community events, right? So
Yeah.
really big importance about how the local airport can support the local community in so many ways. Businesses can rely on it. You have the tourist destination, right? Yeah, we live in a heavy tourist town, and man, on a holiday weekend during the summer, it is amazing on how many business jets and private airplanes are coming and going all the time. It is incredible to drive past the airports, and it's just a row, just rows and rows and rows of airplanes. It's awesome.
And
I love it.
we both live by airports too, and they're different
2
airports
different
actually.
ones. Yes.
And in the summer, or any nice evening, it's amazing the amount of general aviation that I see right outside my window going into the Grand Haven Airport. They're either doing cross countries, they're doing flight instruction. There's a skydiving company that operates out of there. And there's people that just simply fly in for the weekend because it's a tourist destination as
It is.
well. So.
It is. It is. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a background about the two of us and really what this podcast is for, what we're trying to do. It's each episode we're going to be covering all different topics related to marketing, and we're going to have interviews, like I said, from different people inside the aviation industry, outside the aviation industry, because we can learn from all of this. So we're really trying to help all these different entities be better, do some awesome stuff. Cause airplanes are awesome, right? It's cool stuff. So, I think, I think we had also talked shortly just a little bit about, air shows, and you had mentioned F-14s.
Yeah. I know we had a lot of things we were going to cover tonight. I think we maybe some of the stuff I think we're going to hold off for another episode
we will.
here, because I think we had one thing that came up today that was actually pretty timely, and it really made quite the splash in the aviation community today. And that is the so-called Maverick bill that has been advanced in the Senate. Now, there's a lot of, as a Tomcat super fan, I obviously had to look into this because there was a lot of misinformation that went around, I literally say flying around the internet today,
right,
on exactly what was happening. And so I dug into this just a little bit more. And what the Maverick bill is so the F-14 Tomcat, of course, was retired in, I think it was like right around 2006.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And because Iran still operated at the F-14 Tomcat, there was a concern that any of the pieces and parts could be taken from the F-14 Tomcats that were retired and being sold or used to keep the Iranian, the Persian cats, as they were called, flying.
Yeah.
How much of that was a real threat, nobody will ever know. But that threat, sadly, no longer exists because it is believed that none of the Tomcats in Iran still fly, which is very sad. Like I said, Tomcat super fan. I don't care who's flying it. It's incredibly sad. And this is not a Tomcat sitting
awesome
next
airplane.
to me. This is Jax. He's going to come help us talk about cats here. Anyway, So now that the Tomcat, most of them were destroyed, both
Hmm.
by the United States. Right when they were retired, most of the airframes were cut up and gone forever. There's a few that exist, and there are 3 Tomcats that are at Davis Monthan Air Force Base in Arizona that are in basically long-term storage. Now, most of these were in that state were there as a temporary state until they were shredded. Some of them went to museums, but there are 3 that still exist. I think there's only something like 20 some Tomcats. I don't have the exact number. The
It's
number does
not very
fluctuate.
many. Yeah,
No, the number moves
it
because they
does.
were still actively shredding the aircraft. So because of that, there are 3 relatively complete airframes. One appears to be an earlier A model Tomcat. The other 2 are definitely D model Tomcats, and one of which one of the later D models apparently has the wing box intact. Now, for those of you who don't know the Tomcat, the center section that connects to the swing mechanism is basically a box. It's basically a wing spar, but
Hmm.
it's where the pivot points are for as the wings sweep. Most of the aircraft that you see in a museum, those have been cut, making the aircraft totally
Yeah,
unflyable.
you
Even
can't
though the
fly it.
airplane looks intact, the internal structure has been cut away, and the aircraft simply will never, ever, ever be capable of flying again. Well, apparently, one of those aircraft uh, does not have that done to it and has a relatively intact airframe.
Hmm.
And that one, they believe, may actually be able to return to flight status. Now, that's where things got a little crazy because the internet took off thinking that
It
these were
sure
going to get
did.
put back into active duty. They are not going to get put into active duty. And it's not all the remaining Tomcats. It's one Tomcat could be made flyable for air shows, air demonstrations,
Yep,
and
special
heritage type
events.
flights.
Yep.
The other 2 aircraft that are mostly intact, I mean, they're from the pictures, they look intact, but they're not
You can't
suitable to
tell.
be returned to
Yeah,
flight service.
yeah.
Those 2, along with the one that can, is going to be transferred, I believe, to Huntsville.
Huntsville. Yep.
Yeah, where they have a facility there. They're going to do the restoration work, and then from there, they will either be transferred to museums. I mean, this is in some ways it's similar to the F-117 Nighthawk. The F-117 was retired a long time ago. Yet magically, there's at least one. I don't know how many, but we know there's at least
At
one
least once.
that
Yeah.
still flies quite a bit. And the reason is because of its stealth technology is really still the best. They use it for radar testing. So even though it's technically not in service anymore and does not fly combat, it doesn't do anything else. They use it for testing and analysis. And so one of them still flies. And if you see one at a museum, uh, a lot of the aircraft really isn't there. It appears to be there, but all the leading edge services are still classified. And so they've all been refabricated out of sheet metal and painted flat black to make it look as if it's the real one. But all the leading edge services of an F-117 are fake. They're not real. If you see one in a museum, just like when you see a Tomcat in a museum, they are not capable of flying. A lot of the electronics are gone. The wing boxes are taken out. The engines aren't there. The ejection seats usually aren't there, or the ejection seats are demilitarized. So just because the airframe exists doesn't mean that it's capable of flying again. So, what this Maverick Act will do is get potentially at least one Tomcat flying. And we talked about the air shows before, and I say I've been to Oshkosh, I've been to a lot of air shows. I've seen a lot of military hardware flying. There is absolutely nothing in the. See, he's all excited because he
He
knows
is.
we're talking
He
about
is.
Tomcat.
I
So
know.
he has joined us here.
He had to.
Uh, he is very excited to talk about this as well. There's really nothing that could compare to watching the Tomcat
Oh,
air
man.
demonstration. The
Yeah.
sound that it makes, the feeling you get when it goes into afterburner as it goes vertical, sweeps the wings, and starts to spiral up through the clouds. It's really one of the most incredible things. And the chance to go see that happening again is actually pretty exciting.
It's very
Um,
exciting. I know I told my
yeah,
boys, I'm like, if this happens, we are going to go to an air show wherever it's
absolutely.
at. We are
I would do
going.
the same thing. This is worth it. I'm no
Absolutely.
different than when the B-29 Doc got ready to fly again too. I got a chance to see both Doc and Fifi fly together with like a Lancaster. Pretty amazing to see, especially if you're into that. So most certainly, if this comes to fruition, and we'll see. I definitely think that those 3 Tomcats will be saved. I don't think there's any question about that. Now, whether or not one will ever be returned to flight status, we'll see.
We'll see.
However, there was a time in which they thought, no one would privately own an F-4 Phantom. No one will own an A-4 Skyhawk, an F-100. And I think there's even an F-10, it's like an F-104 that made its debut. There's the MiG-29. There's all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and I know that F-4, I saw a video of it taxiing under its own power. Privately owned F-4, it's moving under its own power.
Yeah,
and
so
they're out there. People are restoring them, and I know was it the T-37, the trainer, military trainer that made by Cessna?
There's a group working on those.
They're
so
restoring
it is possible.
those.
I mean, yes, while the Tomcat is very sophisticated for the time it was developed, it's still 1970s technology, and I think that there's a good opportunity that they can get something like that to fly. So it's very exciting to think that could happen. Obviously, the internet it blew up. There's a lot of people who love the Tomcat. We grew up in the 1980s, so between Top Gun and Final Countdown and G.I. Joe and everything else, I mean, the Tomcat is probably the quintessential 1980s aircraft. My Trapper Keeper had the Tomcat on it. I mean, it was it. So for a lot of us of this
mouse
age group,
pad now is of an F-14.
Is a Tomcat on it.
Is it got a Tomcat on it. So
I mean, you can't see it from here, but over there's 3 or 4 Tomcat models. Over there's another 2 or 3 Tomcat models. The room behind me has one on the workbench, and the room all the way down at the end of that hallway has 3 RC Tomcats sitting in it. So obviously, Tomcat super fan over here, and as well as most of the internet is as well, to see that this news, and honestly, there's not a lot of good news happening right now. So typically aviation news that makes the news isn't necessarily the best. Like maybe if you hit a bakery truck. Those are the kind of things that that's
companies shutting down
news we want to talk about.
Yeah, companies shutting down.
Tomcat,
way better talk about.
Way better option to talk about. So we do have some, a lot more news related stuff we're going to talk to you, but I don't think there's anything that's nearly as, let's say, pressing or breaking news as this. The other things we do want to talk about in the future is going to be obviously the transition between leaded fuel to
that's going to be a big
unleaded.
One. Yep.
And then, of course, another one that hits close to home here is that Waco. In Battle Creek, Michigan, closed down unexpectedly, which is very sad, especially because I'd been close to that facility a few times and never actually gone to it, which is too bad, because I should have taken the opportunity to go there. There's a wonderful air museum that's down there. It has a Tomcat, by the way,
it does,
and a
have
stealth fighter.
It sure does.
Waco was there, and unfortunately, the employees went to work one day and it was all closed up. So unfortunately,
really sad.
We lost an aircraft manufacturer. We also lost Spirit Airlines as well. So there isn't a lot of really great aviation news. So when the news about the Tomcat hit, boy, the internet sure lit up with joy.
Yeah, one good thing is Sonex, which is a aircraft kit company. They did also go out of business, but they were recently purchased. And they are restarting back up operations. So,
that is great news. So,
and in fact, I think at the air show, their mini jet is coming to do a demonstration.
Yeah, I did see that. The Muskegon Air Show is going to have a demo of that jet, and I don't know if that's the Viper jet or maybe Oshkosh is going to have the Viper jet there. But I think the Sonex jet is a little bit different. Like I said, there was a lot of news that came out relatively recently.
Yeah, there was.
But when everything went to Tomcat, that got the highlights. So.
It sure did. Yeah. So next episode, we are going to talk a little bit more about some of these news topics that Brian just said. We're also going to cover a book. One of my favorite books is American Icon. Brian, I think it's probably up there with one of your favorite books as well.
Yeah. Sitting over on the shelf underneath the Tomcat models. I've read it at least twice, and I know I've taken it to work, and people have read it there as well.
Yeah, so we're going to cover that and kind of some marketing topics on the next episode. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I know this is episode 1. This is kind of our introduction to talk about us. Also this what this podcast is for, and of course we got to talk about F-14. So I hope you got a little bit of information out of this and you enjoyed it. So if you have, be sure to subscribe, because we're going to be coming out with the episodes hopefully weekly. That's our goal. We'll see how it works, and it's going to be a lot of really good content. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Brian, you got any last closing words before we sign off?
No, I think I'm excited to get this launched.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this for quite a while.
Yeah, we have.
Hats off to Brandon to come up with this plan and to get this in motion. Looking forward to many more episodes and talking aviation and having special guests on as well. So yeah, let's wrap up the very first episode and look forward to getting our second one recorded.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks for flying with us on Turning Base. If you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your team. Want more tips and tools for marketing your aviation business? Visit us at readymarketing.net. Until next time, keep your wings level, your message clear, and your altitude high.